already, really? How much in the semester?
No, 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 it's for
Oh, a couple minutes maybe? Yeah, yeah. You know where it is? Yeah. So I have one announcement before we begin, and that is that Jeff Halper is the chair of something called the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions, and they go around blocking the demolition of houses and rebuilding houses that have been demolished. So he will be speaking in San Francisco on Monday at the First Unitarian Universalist Center on Franklin and Geary. It's kind of an interesting project for us to think about. I'm thinking of creating a new category called Obstructo-Constructive Program. What they do and what some other groups do, actually another group I want to tell you about in a second, is they go and rebuild houses that are knocked down, and then the Israelis come and knock them down again, and they rebuild them again. And it's an interesting approach. It shows, of course, tremendous amount of determination to do something like that. It's completely constructive. The only reason I'm hemming and hawing here, my only hesitation is on the level of efficiency. Like I remember when Mubarak Awad was beginning the Intifada, the first Intifada, he wasn't the only one, but he's involved in it. One of the things they looked at was how efficient the Israeli occupation was, that one IDF soldier could control 5 villages. And they said, one of the things that we can do is make this harder for them and to start being obstreperous and hanging out the flag. All you need to do is display the Palestinian flag, and they have to come and rip it down, or bash down the wall if you painted it on a wall or something. So what they were able to do in a very short period of time was make the occupation drastically more expensive. And it's something we haven't mentioned yet, but it is a consideration. That one of the things that you do in nonviolence is make it harder for your oppressor to oppress you. It's just on any level. So that's mainly it's really just a feeling of grief rather than an objection about these people going out there. It's like Milarepa, being sent out there to build a house for your guru, and then he says he wants it moved over to the other side of the hill, then you got to move it somewhere else. It's sort of Milarepa without the good karma, I guess. Rebuilding a house is a lot harder than tearing one down. So that's my only objection. But it's an incredible project, and it's that project, Rebuilding Alliance, which is doing a phone call next Wednesday. I'm going to try. I've asked them to give me the number so I can give it all to you. But if I fail to do that, you can probably get it on their website, rebuildingalliance.org. And then the third operation I want to mention for us to just keep an eye open for, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite remember the website, which I was told last night, but there were about 150 people milling around, and I was in a state anyway. But there's a group that is planning to break the illegal blockade of Gaza by starting a flotilla of ships that will be, actually they're starting from Cairo probably, but then they'll be regrouping and joining others in Cyprus, and they're just planning going into Gaza, and Meta has been consulting with them about what they should have, what they should not have. Originally, they were going to try to bring humanitarian aid because it's nice and squeaky clean, and it makes the Israelis look bad if they block it. But what they were really trying to do is to get some people, some Palestinians back in there who were not allowed in. So we counseled them to do one or the other. This nonviolence as conversation. You want to keep it one-pointed and clean. If you're doing humanitarian aid, which we did not advise because it's not necessary, the Israelis do a lot of that anyway, just do that. But if you want to bring in people that they don't want in that area, make that the issue. Don't pretend you're bringing in humanitarian aid. Anyway, it's an extremely interesting project. It's getting launched. I forget when. Exactly, later on in the summer. So that's an obstructive program going on. And another one to keep in mind is the one that you probably heard on that webcast radio interview with Jack Duvall, which is a very interesting uprising that has started in the Maldives, these islands off the coast of India, which I guess are politically independent. They've been ruled very despotically for quite some time, and the people are starting to raise up and say we don't want despotism anymore. So it really is, like I sang in the song last night, it really is popping up all over the world. That was the high point, wasn't it? Just because our class is coming to an end, I'd like to start mentioning things that are going on around the world, so to keep your radar tuned to. I want to say a little bit about the presentation that we had last time on nonviolent communication, which has been a very, very successful piece of the action. So we want to ask ourselves, what piece is it? How does it fit in? What does it do? What's left to do elsewhere? And then basically, I'm slowing down in terms of presenting new material from here on out because I feel enough already. You won't get it covered no matter what you do. Even if I were from Chicago and I talked nonstop for 6 hours, we still wouldn't get it all covered. and leave plenty of time for questions and stuff. And another reason that I'm slowing down is we're now approaching a very difficult subject to come to grips with, and that is culture. It's hard to talk about because we are in it. It's hard to talk about the woodwork that you're in. And it's very clear to me some of the dimensions of what's wrong with the present culture and what we're going to need to have in the new one are very, very clear. But the process of how you create a culture and get it adopted has never been clear. And it's never been clear even before we got to the information age. Okay, so here's my agenda. Unless you people want to do something else, I'll talk a little bit about Miki Kashkan's presentation, a few loose ends about what we said about organization, and then start talking about culture, however one talks about that. Okay, so here's one of the things that I want to take out of Miki's talk was her definition of peace, because it is complementary to my definition and sort of interesting to put them side by side. And we should put them side by side, not one on top of the other. Okay, so my definition, which possibly you never even heard because I think I only mentioned it in A, is that peace obtains in a system where all parties spontaneously desire one another's welfare. That covers a lot. So spontaneously means that it's gotten to be it really is what you want. It's not something that you're forcing yourself to work on anymore. You may start out that way, but when you come to feel really that the other person's happiness is important to you, and you're going to work on it, and we're not saying yet that it's more important than your own. We're not saying anything yet about the relationship of your fulfillment to the other person's fulfillment, which follows pretty naturally. I mean, if you really, really deeply believe that your fulfillment is contrary to, in competition with somebody else's, you will not be able to get to this state, because nobody can stop seeking for their own happiness. We're just sort of wound up to do that. All life is doing that. We get pretty stupid about where it's going to be coming from, but we're all seeking it, no matter what. Buddha said that. So, I've just now taken a very simple sentence and made it into a very complicated one. It's called being a professor. Let's go back and do it in the simple version. Any social group in which all parties are interested in the other's happiness is at peace. Any other problems that come up, they will be able to work out based on that understanding. Okay? Now, her definition was a place where all parties can hold all their needs. And you can be aware of what you really need, and you can let the other person be aware of what he or she really needs, and that's peace. It strikes me that these definitions are quite complementary. I have absolutely no problem with hers, and I don't think she'd have a problem with mine. If she did, I would just put on my best New York accent and say, what, you got some kind of problem with that? But that has never happened. Okay, Mickey. So it's interesting because it's kind of typical of what's happening now with this groping for a new world order and a new culture is that different people are coming up with different pieces of it, and we sense that they are in sync, they resonate with one another, but very few people have been able to sit back and say, oh, I see the whole picture, and this is where your piece fits in, and it's actually just a different version of Michael's piece. We're looking at it from a different angle. That's the part that's really missing, is to see the whole thing clearly enough that you can start positioning the different parts. But right now we have hundreds and hundreds of parts, and they're just beautiful. All kinds of different parts. I've got a file back home in my computer called Flowers. It's from this thing, Let 1,000 Flowers Bloom. And every time I hear about one of these neat things, I just throw it on there. It's just going to be this huge, long list. Incoherently beautiful at this point. At some point, though, it does have to be reduced to a formulation that you can grasp with your mind. And then she went on to say that when this happens, amazing creativity is unleashed. I really like that idea. Amazing creativity is unleashed. That's what you were talking about yesterday, Zoe, in your talk, around the joint strategies to meet these needs. Now, when I heard that, this seemed to me to be an ideal case, a very effective case of a principle that was discovered by a couple of sociologists, a married couple actually, una pareja. His last name was Sharif. So there's a book by Sharif and Sharif called In Common Predicament. And this is about an experiment that took place in a camp in Canada where they first decided to see if they could create hostility among the campers. A stupid idea if I ever heard one, but it turned out that, guess what, it was not hard to do that at all. They divided them absolutely arbitrarily into two groups that were called absolutely arbitrary symbolic things, like you be the eagles, you be the something else. Have I told you this before? Okay. And in a short period of time, these two groups of children, young people, they would not eat at the same table, they wouldn't play with one another, they started short-sheeting each other, the things that you do at camp. I'm not sure I can remember how to do that. And it got worse and worse, and it was starting to be serious. I mean, real fights and real conflict. So it turned out that, okay, that part of the experiment was concluded, and it came to a successful conclusion. It is very easy to get human groups to be hostile to one another. All you have to do is say, hey, there's a difference, and bang, off they go. This is not all human groups. We're talking about human groups that come from an urban, industrialized setting in the modern West. Did you have a question, Janelle? Uh-huh. Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So it was a little bit more serious than that. Okay. So my completely cynical interpretation is maybe not justified. But nonetheless, it is strikingly a model for what happens in adult human groups at the built-up level. And look at the Balkans, look at Rwanda, but you could also look at Uganda, look almost anywhere. And you'll see this. Arbitrary differences, especially when resources are involved. And this is what Jared Diamond has pointed out in his book Collapse. But not only then, the hostilities are pretty easy to polarize. So then comes the next part of the experiment, which is how do we get these people back together? And they tried various things. They tried having us all go to movies together, and they actually thought that this would be very effective. It was not. They had them play games together, they had them eat together. Nothing really worked. So Janelle, do you want to tell us what finally did it? Yes, the broken down truck. I forget whether this was one of the created problems or was an actual problem. An actual problem, thank you. They had to get into town to get something, and the truck broke down, and it needed everybody's resources to fix it. And they noticed that the groups were much more cordial after they had worked on the truck together. So they said, sociologists say that a lot. They said, maybe something is going on here. And they started creating problems like, oh, the well isn't working. Who knows about electric motors and ropes and pulleys and stuff like that? And so they did a few more of these things, and they found in really an encouragingly short period of time, the groups got back together and the differences were pretty much forgotten. It was a very useful finding. Reconciliation and other forms of amity and community building seems like they happen most effectively around common projects. Hang on just one second. So here we have a common project, which is more or less the reconciliation itself. And the joint meeting of needs. It strikes me that this thing that Nikki was describing would be like the most effective kind of joint project to bring groups back together or strengthen bonds, which is say, I'm interested in your needs, you're interested in mine. I no longer define my needs as in competition with yours, and vice versa. Once you can reach that point, conflict is pretty much arbitrary. It's going to be outgoing. Yeah. Well, you'd have to read the book. I don't remember. The only thing I remember is that it got past hostility very quickly. But it would be interesting to know, could they then still retain their group loyalties and not define them in a negative way? Like, hi, I'm a blue. Oh, you're a green. That's interesting. Yeah.
That study, after they did all these, I don't know, it's supposed some kind of goals like that both groups have to work together to get to a certain goal. At the beginning of the study, one group had gotten like some money for doing one task.
That's trouble.
But when they went home on the buses, they took a stop and that person like bought everyone ice cream cones with the money.
Spontaneously, you mean? Yeah, I hope so. All right, was there anything else that from the presentation about nonviolent communication? And incidentally, they do a lot of trainings in this area. Bay Area is one of the bigger worldwide nonviolent communication center, and they are worldwide. Matthias?
I find it really interesting that a lot of trainings. Open, they did a lot of workshops. And what was always every time I went so interesting is to one realize how we were trained not to do that.
Yeah.
Basically, school is such a
competitive
place, and our families do not raise us. And like,
Yeah.
what do you need? What do you
Yeah.
need? And so seeing a room packed with 1 to 400 people, everybody struggling with the same thing, one by one bringing an example and coming up and working it out, where people who had arguments, in front of everybody working it out with the cutting bands of non-communication trainings for much work. It's just always such inspiration to see the biggest problems can get worked out when people calm down and see and how that everything can be resolved.
I agree. I think the strongest part of their work is how they're able to put you on a different footing where the differences that you have with another person become problems to solve. And that's all you need to do. And especially if you can work those problems out together, so the process itself is bonding. And implicit in what you were saying, no, explicit in what you were saying, very much like where we started in 164A, that there is no such thing as an irresolvable conflict that can only come to a win-lose conclusion. There is no such thing. You just have to stop believing in it. And you can build it up from the smallest one-on-one confrontation, as Matthias was just saying, to the biggest problems in the world. And that's why I keep bringing up this little big discovery of Johann Galtung, that the clash of civilizations is because the West needs access to their oil reserves and they need respect for their religion. So where's the conflict? If we would just get our egos out of the way and get down to the point where we recognize that, I think anybody with a third grade education, not beyond, but up to third grade education, to be able to solve that. Yeah, so it is awesome, and I think at lunch afterwards I asked Mickey what the trainings really were, and she said it is not too different from what she was doing here with us. Just getting us to the point where we recognize what our needs are. And then the second part of that, which you began with, Matthias, was once you do that, it really is shocking to take a look at your culture and see how it is preparing you to be in conflict always. Just like the Kaiser said, we do not desire war, we only desire victory. So if you go around desiring victory all the time, you're going to be in perpetual conflict. That's the only way you can get there. Yeah, so that was very good, and it would be interesting to compare. I'm not proposing we could maybe finish it now, but be thinking about this. What piece of the action is this? They do primarily training. They don't do much theoretical work. They figure they know what they need to know, and as far as that goes, they're probably correct for the work that they're doing. And what they try to do is train people to think in that way so that they can implement those insights. Then you have something like the Ruckus Society on the other extreme, which is teaching you how to rope your way up a building and what to say to the police when they arrest you. And then you have groups like mine, Meta, and I was very happy to see all of you there last night. That was a lot of fun. I haven't got to play a whole lot more Jesus for a long time. And what we do is, again, there's almost no overlap between what we do and what nonviolent communication does. We do almost no training, and we try to study and conceptualize what nonviolence is and get it into different packages and deliveries that people can benefit from it. The now famous formula of inspiration, education, and support. So, and other groups too that you look at, victim offender reconciliation programs, and in a minute we're going to be talking about truth and reconciliation stuff. Just start thinking about, I don't know, there must be some computer program which allows you to conceptually map the entire universe and put different pieces in different colors and different levels and stuff. It's a very important project. Be thinking when you're doing this about the model of Joanna Macy's that I've shared earlier, where she says we need to do 3 things, basically. It's kind of a triage, if you will. We need to stop the worst of the damage. That would be pretty much our obstructive program. We need to create alternatives, which would be pretty much our constructive program. And then we need the cognitive work, which we're trying to address now here, in why are we trying to do this? What is the meaning of it all? How does it fit in? And so forth. And she divided cognitive very wisely, I think, into, I'm forgetting now what term she used. It was something else. She was looking at culture, I think, and she divided it into cognitive and spiritual. So I think those are very useful categories, and I'd like to see her put nonviolence at the center of it. But that's between me and her. Yeah, Matthias?
Joanna Macy is going to do a meditation retreat in June. That's very proud.
Okay, that's good to know. It'll probably be a small meditation retreat.